Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Van Holtz here, back again with another E-Commerce Conversations. Across the desk from me is a second-time guest, Shakil Prasla. What's up, Shakil?
What's up, Eric? Good to be here.
Great to be here. Great to be here. We just wrapped up Cuts in Capitalism, which is where we meet at the Beard Brand Barbershop and we talk some business, get some haircuts. So Shakil's looking fresh. Nice fade going on, beard trim. Handsome man. He's a very handsome man.
I enjoyed it here. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for organizing.
Dude, so this is going to be a really interesting podcast episode because, first of all, listen to the Shakil podcast that we did a number of years ago. He talked about M&As as a strategy for his business. He buys and sells e-commerce businesses, built a portfolio. And what's really interesting about Shakil and I is we see the world a little bit different. And I'm kind of, I want to live debt free. I want to, have low stress, low drama. And Shakil is very driven, very ambitious, very talented. And he wants to grow at a much higher rate and live a lifestyle that's, within that, that represents the success that he's had. But it kind of might have been
Yeah. The path that I chose, it comes with its pros and cons. It's super risky. When you take on debt, you're going to have to make sure the cash flow is there. And when the cash flow is not there, then you're going to have to pull from somewhere or borrow even more money. And so some decisions have worked out. Some, unfortunately, have not worked out. And so currently, I'm in a crisis where it hasn't worked out. But I've learned a lot about myself and kind of during this process and just asking the right questions. If I were to do it again, I would still do it again.
Yeah. Well, let's give the listener some details. I don't know how much you're willing to open up to kind of talk about what's going on, but as transparent as you can, that'll be very beneficial. What happened with the deal? What did you buy? What do the numbers look like? What's going on?
Yeah. So last year during the pandemic, a lot of people in March, everyone just saw a drop in e-commerce, and we started getting inquiries about carrying masks and gowns and gloves, which none of we had, but our manufacturers in China told us they could make it. So we started importing some masks and some gowns and just learning about the whole PPE industry. We weren't doing on a high scale, but we were able to build some good relationships. And during the summer, a lot of prices kind of tanked for the masks and gowns, and we just started focusing on gloves, where I saw there was a long-term potential business from it, because at the end of the day, everyone still is going to want gloves, from dentist groups, medical groups, to tattoo artists, barber shops. A lot of people are using gloves and they still will do it even after COVID. So I said, all right, let's make a long-term business out of gloves. So I bought gloves.com, and I really believe in those exact domain match keywords that help you with SEO, branding, credibility. So I bought gloves.com for 7 figures, and it was, most of the value was on the domain itself. So even spending that kind of money, I've never done that before on the domain, but I said, what the hell, let's do it. Let's go. And along with that, we bought a bunch of inventory. So in Q4...
As part of that, company had inventory as well, or is this a different deal?
In addition to that, just to grow the company. And so Q4 is when we bought the gloves.com, and it was going well.
Yeah, 2020.
2020, so about 7-8 months ago. And things were going well. We were making nice 30% profit margins, and we were doing high volume. And at that point, I kind of wanted to stop making sort of these high profits, and I wanted to create this long-term relationships with these customers. And so I went all in, and we bought over $10 million worth of inventory. And just coordinating that with the different types of containers and all this and that, it created this production delay. And instead of shipping out in a few weeks, And, manufacturers all like to say, hey, it's going to ship out in 1 to 2 weeks. I knew that's never the case. You got to bump it up by, double. For us, it was delayed quite a bit. And by the time the containers shipped, by the time they got processed through customs, right during Chinese New Year, and this is where everyone's trying to get their goods out, right? And so Long Beach is already congested. It took 3 months to get most of the products. And by then, vaccines were out, demand fell, and what we were paying for the boxes of gloves dropped by 10%, by 20%. We panicked, and we did a lot of fire sale at a 50% discount from what we bought it for. So unfortunately, we did take about a $5 million haircut, a little bit above that, about $6 million haircut. And that sucks. This wasn't a VC money or private equity group money. This was, me and my 2 partners. And so it just sucked going through that whole process of first realizing I'm going to lose a lot of money. How am I going to even make this back to even making that much money? And I think when I even saw you last time, it was hard.
Yeah. Last month, I felt like I was picking you off, rock bottom. Like, I don't know if that was like the lowest of low, but you were.
It was bad. But if you remember in January, I was on a high horse. And
oh, yeah. You were ready to take over the world. And
yeah. But, a few things I've learned here is.
So why didn't you just hold on to the inventory? Is it because you had to pay the debts off?
That's a good question. COVID inflated PPE products. So before COVID, a box of gloves would cost $3 to $4. And during COVID, it got up to $15.
Mm-hmm.
And so once the demand fell, the prices started getting back to being normalized. And we knew it was going to come. We didn't know how quick it was going to come. And it came exactly when we just went all in.
Yeah. Now, your costs, were they above that 3 to 4?
Yeah. Our cost was $10
per box.
Yeah, and we're selling it for 13. And now the going price is $5 a box times 1 million boxes.
Oh no.
Yeah.
There's no value add you can do either to get that price up to $10 a box.
We ended up selling a good portion of it to non-USA customers where COVID is still really there, like Mexico and overseas and stuff. But yeah, that was the journey. And I knew going in, there was a risk in that. It's just when you know there's a risk, you don't know how you're going to feel during it. You don't know how it's going to come.
Well, you always kind of partially like, nah, that's not going to happen to me. Nah.
Yeah, you're more optimistic. And man, what it did, it's just like, holy crap. What do I do? No one's built to lose money. Everybody wants to make money, and everyone goes through roadblocks and stuff. But when you sort of go all in, when the number one rule of investing is don't put all your eggs in one basket or don't go all in. I did that.
Don't put in the amount of money you're not willing to lose.
Yeah, and I did.
Okay. So are you bankrupt now?
No, I'm not bankrupt, but I am like cash flow poor.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's hindered relationships as well with your business partners?
We're in this together, and we had a lot of low points, a lot of emotional breakdowns, and it obviously carries. And this isn't just my one business, but it carries to your other businesses. It carries to your relationships. It carries to your health, your sleep. I'm the heaviest I've ever been. But it does trickle down in other lifestyles and just getting into your life. But I'm happy to say that even though I've had the loss, I've accepted it, and I'm much happier than I was a few months ago.
Yeah.
Like, it's just accepting it.
So I guess, like, what are the stages of grief or something? It's like denial and
exactly
acceptance.
It's crazy. Like, you read these books and you have these phases, and I went through them. And one thing I started doing earlier this year was journaling and just reflecting on those journals and seeing what I even talked about. Like, it's just crazy to think like I had those thoughts, and it was just like those thoughts were more about how am I going to survive through this?
Yeah.
Like, would people like Eric look at me and say, you're a failure? And it's crazy. No one cares. Like, I'm open to say this story because like people have failures. People have, good times. I think we live in a culture where a lot of people will share the good stories and the bad story just kind of gets stuck. But I think it's those bad stories you get to learn from. And I learned if you were trying to get quick money, you're going to make that quick money. You're going to have quick losses too.
Yeah.
So I need to stick to what I knew best, which was predictable revenue. This is why I buy businesses, is for predictable cash flow.
So a couple things that I want to highlight. My personal take is one thing I love about America is that American culture of really tolerance of failure. I've been to other countries where you're literally not allowed to fail. Like if you failed like you just did, you would be shunned.
Mm-hmm.
People want to talk to you, like you would realize all those fears that you had. But here in America, it's almost to a certain degree a badge of honor. It's someone who took the risk and, hopefully you learned a lesson in this. Like, what is the big lesson?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you just said it and, like stick to what you do best, but like you don't grow that way. Like you don't grow by sticking to what you know best.
Yeah, no, that's true. I guess when you want to explore your boundaries or go past it, do it in a cheaper way than I did. This was a expensive tuition I just paid.
Yeah. How long do you think it's going to be until you dig yourself out of this?
2 years.
What's the plan then? I mean, that you sound pretty sure of that.
So I've dabbled a little bit more into taking the minimal cash I had was to put in kind of stocks and a bit of real estate. But the existing companies I have, the ones that are going to be the most valuable in my eyes, I'm going to focus more on that. So sort of being more aggressive in growth in a methodical way was one way I could provide more value and make up for that kind of loss in sort of net worth. And then two is gloves.com is still going to be a sustainable business. And if you Google gloves or nitrile gloves, we rank on the first page now. So we're starting to see uptick. And the goal is just to grow that company and in 2 years just sell it.
Yeah. And you'll just stick on that inventory selling at a haircut.
Yeah, we sold a lot of it and we replenished it with way cheaper inventory that is hopefully profitable.
Okay. From a personal standpoint, did you have to like adjust your lifestyle, liquidate your properties, or
I
find
did.
a new home, sell your cars?
No, I still kept on the house. I still have the exact same debt. The cars. I changed one mindset. I'm not a sort of a brand whore. I need nice clothing and stuff, but I do like nice things. And you want to spoil the wife and stuff. But I've, spoke with the family and told everyone, look, we're going to have to take a pause on just kind of these lavish expenses, these travels. We were traveling a lot before COVID, at least once a month. We're going to take a little pause on that. Unfortunately, due to this circumstance I put the family into. But yeah, we're cutting down expenses to make sure that we just get through this. And it's a mindset thing. You've lost money. You don't really want to do anything. And that's what I'm going through.
Yeah. I haven't convinced you, though, of the debt-free life.
It's weird. I get a thrill from carrying on debt. Like it gives just like a surge of energy knowing that I need to keep making these payments. And to me, it's just an ROI. Your dollar goes way further by borrowing. Even when you're buying businesses, I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you're buying an e-commerce brand. You buy $1 million brand, and usually the multiples are around 3 to 4x. But quick math, you buy it at 3x multiple. That means that business is making $333,000 a year. So your ROI is 33% because you bought it for $1 million and you're making $333,000 a year. Now, if you borrowed money, typically SBA will let you put down 20%, or it's usually 10%. So you're putting down 10%.
$100,000.
$100,000. You're borrowing $900,000 over 10 years, and the interest rate is prime plus 2.75%. So let's just quick math. It's 6% right now. So your payments are going to be around 10 grand a month. So $120,000 a year. And you're making $333,000 and your payments are $120,000. So you're left with $213,000. But you only put $100,000 and you're making $213,000, right? So it's a 213% return on your money when you're borrowing versus going all cash in and your ROI is 33%. So what that allows me to do is now buy multiple businesses with that same $1 million. I could buy 10 businesses now. But, it's a risk appetite. Someone has to be okay with that, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So the math on that, you have $1 million in the bank. You can buy one business for $1 million, make $300,000, or you can buy 10 businesses valued at $10 million. Mm-hmm. And essentially what's 10 times, what would the net be on that? Like 200,000. So $2 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're essentially able to pull in $2 million of profit versus $333,000.
Exactly. Yeah. Are you going to do it?
Yeah, the math. I mean, I don't disagree at all that, using, I mean, it's a time value. You're able to use your skill set to increase value through financing. I don't disagree that that's a quicker and better way to grow.
Yeah.
And it's also the same is true for, like buying a house or renting or buying a car or whatever. But to me, it's just like, I have this like weird thing where I just feel like I'm somebody's bitch, for lack of a better term. Like, I'm just like, I don't own the company, as long as there's a mortgage on the company, I don't own it.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, there's just something about the tangible aspect of like, I 100% own this. Nobody can tell me what to do. The bank can't tell me what to do. If stuff gets real tight, I can liquidate everything, or I can, lean down, like super lean. I can cut all my obligations and make the company survive.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like once you have these debts, like if you can't make the numbers work, like if the market dries up and then all of a sudden that $1 million a year of revenue turns to, $100,000 of revenue, then what do you do? And you've got $120,000 of debt obligations.
Yeah, there is that risk. Absolutely.
How frequently do you see that risk coming to fruition? Like, let's be real for anyone out there. Like you hear the dream, make $2 million versus make $300,000 using the same amount of money.
I've heard of stories about them. It does happen. E-commerce in general is just a risky business model where if you're driving, let's just say, traffic through Facebook ads and you have this OS update and your conversion rates or your return on ad spend goes down, then it sucks. And these debt payments that you were once able to make, you're not even getting the cash flow. So I've seen businesses go bankrupt. I've seen people go bankrupt, and these loans that you take on are personal guarantee. So you do have to pay. You cannot just run away. And so, yeah, unfortunately, I've seen people lose their business and just lose everything they have. And on the flip side, what I try to tell people is if you're risk averse, don't take on this loan. And if you're trying to buy a business, don't just buy it for the numbers. Bring value or a skill set to grow it. Because if you're not bringing any value, if you're not bringing a skill set, you're probably going to go bankrupt and you're just buying yourself a full-time job, not a lifestyle.
So when you buy a property, a lot of it seems like it's really that due diligence up front. What are the lessons that you've learned in analyzing? And we've talked about this in the previous podcast, but like quickly, can you share anything that you have learned recently that might make for a better acquisition of an e-commerce brand?
Two big lessons I've learned and this is from me doing hundreds of due diligences on businesses, is two things have always kind of stood out to me. Number one is the numbers. You typically are buying a business off a multiple of something, revenue or profit. And if you're a small business, it typically goes unaudited. You just may use QuickBooks, you may have expenses that aren't related to the business, or you may have expenses related to the business that you put on another credit card for points, let's say. So I've seen financials where they're not accurate, right? If a business is making $100,000 a year on the prospectus, but it's actually, let's just say 90,000, so 10,000 less, you're overpaying by 30 to 40 grand. And so one thing I've realized is if you get a prospectus, you're going to have to put on your accounting hat. If you're not an accountant, then you could hire companies like Centurica who specialize in due diligence.
How do you spell that?
Centurica.
Okay.
Centurica.com.
They do like financial audits, forensic.
They do financial audits and marketing audits and operational audits, which are all key things, which is my second lesson learned. But this first one is just making sure the numbers are accurate. So whatever's on the prospectus, ask for their tax returns. Ask for your merchant statements, your bank statements, your PayPal statements. Look at Facebook, where if the ad spend last year was $1 million, check Facebook, check Google. Does it show $1 million in ad spend? Now reflect that against credit card statements. Add that up together. It's tedious. But if you're buying a business, you want to make sure that everything adds up. So number one sort of lesson learned is making sure the numbers match up.
How much does it cost to pay for these audits?
Anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000.
Okay.
But a $1 million business, that's an insurance policy, I think.
Well, it's like what you said, 3 times revenue valuation. It pays for itself if it finds a difference of $6,000.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or $2,000, I should say.
Yeah, profit. Yeah, so 6. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
So they just got to find $2,000 of discrepancies to break even.
And it's more often than not. And most of the time it's an honest mistake.
Yeah. It's hard to do books. I mean,
yeah. You're focused on growing the business. I mean, yeah.
From an entrepreneur standpoint, we hate the books. It's just like, do I have enough cash?
Yeah.
Let's spend it. I don't care how it's accounted.
And then the second lesson is the owner's involvement. Most of the time, the owners will say they're working 10 to 15 hours a week, making $100,000 a year. To everybody, that sounds great. You're working less than part-time, making $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
I want to do that too.
Well, why would you sell it?
Yeah. Why would you sell it? And some of those even answers are kind of BS to me. But the main thing here is to know you're buying a business. Maybe the owner was running this business for so many years where he's so used to, or she is so used to making the decisions on the fly, right? If someone comes to you and asks you a question, you already know right away because you have the knowledge of running the business. Maybe that's how they're able to kind of work less. Mm-hmm. But people underestimate how much they're actually working. Are you really timing yourself and saying you're working 2 hours a day? Right? Your mind is occupied about the business. You're thinking about how do I increase this? What do I do next? That's time spent in the business, right? So that's always underestimated. If anyone says it's under 40 hours, I think it's just a lie.
Yeah.
So just watch out for that you are going to be working a lot more than the owner, because not only are you running the business, you're learning about the business. You're getting to know the suppliers and employees. So that's a big thing I've seen people is they'll try to keep their corporate job and buy online business. That's not the way to do it.
Yeah. So maybe an alternative would be if you're pretty talented at hiring leadership, and you could kind of plug that person in to run it. And essentially they're going to be doing all the learning and growing. Have you done that as well, or try to keep leadership in or promoted people where you don't have to reinvest that time?
Yeah, and that's exactly our model is when we buy a business, we keep the original owner on for a few months to transition sort of all the knowledge to the business manager that we hire or the CEO. But that's our model is we buy a business and we sort of plug in a business manager or CEO to run the day-to-day while we act more of a chairman and get on the monthly calls, make sure everything's going as smoothly as possible.
So where you sit today, you're not buying anything for 2 years. Is that kind of what I heard? And you're just focusing on what you have?
Right now, I'm not going to be buying anything. I need to focus on growing my existing brands. And plus, buying too many brands, it gets hard too.
Yeah.
Unless you enlarge your team, and you could get a bigger team by having more funding. And I don't have the luxury right now.
How can you optimize or improve efficiencies of dealing with multi-brands? Are all your companies like on the same EOS, strategy, same KPIs?
About so, yeah. So we do follow the EOS model and just kind of do the whole IDS meetings of issues, discussion, solutions, and our rocks. So all the companies do that, and it helps provide clarity to everybody that in 10 years, this is what we're trying to do. In 3 years, here's your annual goals, here's your quarterly rocks, here's your monthly actionable items that each the CEO needs to do. And it gives them a roadmap, sort of these boundaries on what we're trying to do, but it's up to you on how to get there. And so we really empower our CEOs to do that. But sort of to answer your questions, to create more efficiencies, we own all these companies. What's powering the whole company is we've modeled the agency route, which is all these people work for us, your digital marketers, your content writers, your developers, but they work for the parent company. And so they all are working for all the companies, and each company will just pay a management fee to the parent company, and the parent company is the one that pays the employees. But that's how we've kind of created these economies of scale, is taking the agency route, because most agencies aren't working with just one client. They have multiple clients, and that's what we're doing.
What happens when your agency work sucks compared to what you can get on the market?
And we've seen that before. So we will try to replace them, or we, for the temporary solution, just find another agency to work with us. But we'll need to fix that with someone else. And we've gone through that. One thing I've learned is when someone's looking for a job, they tend to sell themselves more than what they're capable of. And you could do all kinds of tests and personality tests. It's just sometimes we've failed at that as well.
Let's continue on that and talk about the CEO, because How do you hire a CEO, man? Like, I've never done that. I like the idea of essentially like building a portfolio of multiple brands, but to do that, you have to have great leadership.
One thing that you also have to have as the owner is letting go, letting just things go. If you're buying a business with debt, you're sort of betting on the CEO to making sure the business runs smoothly. So you're adding a bit more risk. And to me, the way we've done things well is we really empower the CEO to make those decisions, like the EOS and the rocks and our goals. It's mostly driven by these CEOs. And so I want to make sure that whatever they're picking is attainable. And we don't, right when we buy the business, we don't come up with these rocks. We want to make sure that they're working a few months, that they understand the business, that we understand each other, that they want to stay here for long term.
Where are you hiring most of your CEOs? Are they within internal to the company that you're promoting, or you're hiring on job boards or recruiting or
job boards or getting a recruiting agency to find them? And the ones that have worked out well for us have typically been from marketing agencies.
Okay.
So CEOs that are digital marketers, but they're senior digital marketers. So they have that experience with KPIs and leadership, but they also have that marketing background too.
What does a compensation package typically look like?
The smaller companies pay them anywhere from 70 grand starting, and the bigger companies will go into the six figures then.
And then I assume there's a bonus in there or some kind of profit sharing. There's no equity.
We do like 3 different compensations along with the base. So you'll get your anniversary bonus. So every year you're with us, you get a bonus. And that's mainly we're investing in this person. We want to make sure that they stick around. Number 2 is we do some kind of profit sharing. It's more based off the growth. So if I'm buying a business that does $1 million in revenue, and if they grow it to 1.2 and the net margins at least stay the same, then they get a bonus off the gain of the 200,000.
The 200,000.
So they get some profit share. And then 3 is, we don't do this as much anymore, but there is equity that we do, vested equity, phantom equity. It's just, if they get 5%, they get it every year. And if they leave...
What do you mean? If they get 5% equity or phantom equity?
Yeah, and let's just say over the course of 3 years, the first one, they'll get 1%. The second year, they'll get 2%. The third year, they'll get 2% again. But if they leave within the 3 years, we get that equity back. They're not able to sell
100% of it.
Exactly. But the whole point of this is you want to make sure people feel worthy. They're getting paid market rates, because if you pay them below market rates, they're going to know their value, and they're always going to be on the hunt for looking for other jobs. So we always try to go in and provide market value. But again, it has to make sense with what the business is cash flowing to.
Right.
So the one thing I've learned is sometimes people have different goals. Maybe they want to make a bunch of money. Maybe they just want to grow the company and be compensated off sort of this commission. Or 3, they just want to make a difference. I know some of our CEOs like having the title as CEOs. They love to just put it as their signature and introduce themselves as CEOs. And whatever it is, some people like that too.
So it's finding, kind of the motivation. I mean, it's really for all jobs, like whether it's CEO or, entry level, whatever.
That's true.
Customer service, you need to understand what their career path is and what their goals are. And, I think that's a big part of facilitating that relationship. Where can people commiserate with you who have lost $5 million?
You can go to my website. I took that famous picture with you, actually, with Beard Brand, but shakilprasla.com.
Yeah. How do you spell your name?
SHAKILPRASLA@gmail.com. Or .com, sorry. I just gave my email away too. That's fine. Email me as well.
I really appreciate you coming on the show and being so vulnerable and kind of opening up about what happened with gloves.com. And I know you. I know you're an amazing person. You're a great man. You're a pillar of the community. And now you just have like another link on the chain of the knowledge chain, which I don't think anyone's ever said before. But, just added to the notch on your belt, I guess is what they say. So thanks for coming by.
Thanks. Eric.
This has been another e-commerce conversations. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Follow Shakil and reach out to him and tell him about all the things that he could have bought with that $5 million. Cheers.
Thank you.
And keep on growing.